My name is Erin Callahan. I've been living with type 1 diabetes for 36 years. I am very good friends with the folks up here and the folks at the American Diabetes Association, and I worked with them on their Focus on Diabetes initiative, which is what we're here to talk with you about today. I currently work with the Diabetes Patient Advocacy Coalition. So we're here to show you that a life in diabetes and with diabetes ends up like pretty cool, because here we are with all these awesome friends in this fabulous community, 36 years later for me. And I'm going to let Rebecca introduce herself first, and then we'll get to our big guest of honor here.
Well, hi everybody. My name is Rebecca Gillen. I am a project coordinator with the American Diabetes Association. And I have had type 1 diabetes since 2003. So been through a lot with it, a lot of highs and a lot of lows, literally and figuratively. But yeah, I'm really excited to be here today and get to share kind of the patient perspective and how to take care of your eyes. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And we also have Dr. Ben Zurich, who many of you may be familiar with. I'm going to read the official bio for you, Dr. Ben. He has been the Director of Teleocular Health at Rutgers, New Jersey Medical since 2002. And he has been a friend for life since 19 years. Awesome. So Dr. Ben, can you share with us what brought you here? We're all started with us, so don't worry about that.
Basically, it's embarrassing actually. At the meeting of the American Diabetic Association, I met this guy that had a funny car. His name was Jeff something, and his car was really hokey pokey. He showed me, "Can you come and do our kids with diabetes?" I said, "Sure." Decided, and it looked like a really hokey pokey. Next year he comes back and he said, "Do you remember me?" I remember the card. And he said, "Why don't you come and see us?" So I said, "Okay, fine." So we came, we were in the actual exhibit hall. We screened about 100 people. And then since then, we are here. So this year is we have 106, 107, and 108 medical students that has come across thing, and what they learn is that we don't call people with diabetes diabetics, someone that lives with diabetes. And then the students tell me, "Hey, diabetes is not just the patient, it's an entire family, with friends, cousins, everybody." So it's important to have that community. And since we have had all those medical students that came through, several of them became pediatric entomologists. Several of them became endocrinologists, pediatrics. One of them who had type 1 diabetes is now a pediatric endocrinologist practicing in Africa. So he learned how important it is to give back. And that's what we try to teach our students. So we're here, we do very comprehensive, we do more than in the doctor's office. So the recommended thing that we should all do, after 5 years of diagnosis, we should have our eyes checked. That's what we do at 5 minutes from here. We do a little bit more in depth. I do preventative medicine, so I want to see when is it coming, where is it coming from, why do I do that? I do that because we want to change things as soon as we can. So the testing we do there, we take eye pressures, we take something called ocular coherence thermography, which gives me a pretty much good idea what's going to happen in the next few years if you continue doing what you're doing. So I don't like surprises, I hate surprises. I was diagnosed as a type 2. Things weren't going well, being treated as a type 2. And suddenly I said, well, maybe we should check in a little bit more. So it's super important, testing.
Thank you. And we're going to get into some questions for Dr. Ben and for Rebecca here as well. But you mentioned having an eye exam within 5 years of diagnosis. So I'm certain that we can all agree that we've heard that we should have everyone, regardless of diagnostic, regardless of diabetes, should have an annual dilated eye exam, particularly people with diabetes. It is so important to be able to monitor changes in your eyes. Your eyes are really not only the windows to the soul, but they're the windows to your actual physical body and your physical health. And I think Dr. Ben can share some fun things with that in just a short time. But again, just a reminder that really everyone should be having that annual dilated eye exam. And though we do some pretty remarkable testing here, this is the only place in the country where people with diabetes can come in for this type of screening, which is incredible with the work that you and your students do. But also that you can go to an optometrist to get an annual dilated eye exam. Of course, that's no substitution for an ophthalmologist or anyone who might be seeing you for a more progressive condition. But you can certainly find no shortage of eye doctors who are willing to help you out. So on that note, because we've heard the warning about getting your annual dilated eye exam, Dr. Ben, what are some of the things that we look for in an annual eye exam? People with type 1 diabetes, let's start there.
Well, generally speaking, 50% of the population are not aware that they may have glaucoma, diabetes, age-related macular degeneration, and cataracts. So those are everything in this room we test for. Because if you have diabetes, you are going to have cataract 10 years before anybody else, unless you wear fantastic shades that are in the middle of your table. You all look great in shades. It's very important that we check to see if you have multiple what we call VTDs, vision-threatening diseases. You could have diabetes and glaucoma at the same time. It's not exclusive. So we need to check all those things. In diabetes, we go really in depth to see how you're doing, what you're doing. We do it non-nutritionally. We don't put drops. So it doesn't replace the eye exam at the eye doctor's office. In our office, we do that. Here, why don't we do that? One, because I want you guys to all have fun and not be diabetic. And two, there are complications that could happen with drops, such as closed-ended glaucoma and all those things. So that's why we do non-nutritionally. The equipment we have is made for infrared use, so in the dark. So that's why you come to the office in the back where we are. The room is dark. It's not because we're funny people. We do our best work in the dark. So it's important that we have these tests to catch the disease early. Catch disease early, we can treat early. So that's the main key important thing that we do.
Thank you. That's great. And so tell me a little bit, you've used a lot of big words here, right? You've talked about ocular OCT.
Ocular coherence tomography.
Thank you. We could say OCT here. What is it that you're looking for? How does diabetes impact what is going on in your eyeball? And why would you have to use something that's infrared or something in the dark? What is it you're looking at and what is it you're looking for that's impacted by diabetes?
So anybody has a 25 cents on them?
A quarter.
You have a quarter?
Nobody has change anymore. There's a shortage.
Okay. Anybody has credit cards? I'll take them here. No. So take a quarter tonight. Buy the quarter, and the quarter is exactly the size of the human eye, precisely. The eye of the president on the quarter is exactly the size of the fovea. The fovea is the center of vision, 20/20 vision, color vision, black and white vision. That is the size, the eye of the president. If we have a hemorrhage that ends up on the eye of the president, on the quarter, which is tiny, you lose vision. So to prevent that, we check and make sure everything is good. Now, when we say you lose vision, it's not forever. But until the blood clears, until we access the difficulties that we have, it's going to be there. So the size of a quarter, we had 11 subspecialty doctors that work on a small structure like that. Imagine. It's the structure in the body that we have the most subspecialties in. We don't have eye transplants, so the only solution we have to restore vision is to do testing. The more testing we do, the more pickups we have. The more pickups we have, the better it is. Now, what's good about here is for the last 11 years, we have been following a group of kids with diabetes or people with diabetes. And we have something called the trend analysis. It will actually measure each time you come, plot you, and we can see if your eye, your retina, not your blood glucose, but if your retina, how healthy is it? So it's going to then predict in the next 2 or 3 years, hey, we got to check this person. We had one person that came here. He was doing great. He was 21 with diabetes. That's a different age. And he knew everything in the world. Nobody could tell him anything. And he decided on the spot that he was done with diabetes. I'm done. Done with insulin, done with control, done with everything. His body said, no, you're not done. He had 0 hemorrhages. When he came back a year and a half later, he had 262 hemorrhages in one eye, 108 in the fellow eye. But we had scanned him, and in the OCT, we could see that his actual subretina was healthy. His retina now became crazy. Body will allow you a lot of leeway, but once you hit that spot, boom, it's going to punish you. So what we did is we sat on him for 8 months. We brought him back to 2 hemorrhages in one eye, the other one is 0. But because we had the technology of OCT, we could see we can save this versus we don't know what we're moving. Instead of doing surgery, lasers, we just got him in good control. So we do blood pressure to make sure you don't have high blood pressure. If you have diabetes and high blood pressure, you could break blood vessels, they'll start to leak. It's called plain hemorrhages. If you have diabetes with your glucose that's out of control, we call it roller coaster. You can have dot hemorrhages. And you can have also burnouts. So those are where retinal vessels that are veins and arteries connect together and create a problem. So to avoid all that, we test, see what's happening. So we're lucky because we can predict what's happening. If you guys come, we have now artificial intelligence. So in 10 seconds, once we capture the images, artificial intelligence reads your images and gives you a report instead of me sitting there with you and you have to listen to me. So in 10 seconds, it tells you good, no good. Simple. We have a robot. The robot is going to replace me. It speaks 22 languages. I only speak 5. So it will go around and you guys can converse. It can understand one language and speak in another, and then gives you the actual what you need to do and so on and so forth. It connects you to physicians in different places with subspecialties. So you don't have to make an appointment, wait 3 months. So that's what we're doing all the way there.
That is a lot of information. What really jumped out to me, particularly as a person living with diabetes, is that in the gentleman that you mentioned, the 21-year-old, that you were able to identify the change, but then also help to correct it. Yes. And I don't know about you all, but because we have an audience full of caregivers, my guess is that your concern is for your loved one and the state of their vision. And if you're anything like my own mom and dad, you will say to your loved one over and over as they are teenagers, you know, you're really running yourself into the ground with this. Or this is going to cause this damage and this is what you're doing to yourself. And while that's not untrue, we're also here to tell you that there are great ways that you can correct it, but the best thing that you can do is understand more about your eye health. And treatments have come a long way as well. Can you tell us a little bit about treatments for diabetic eye disease, if we will? Sorry, person with diabetes eye disease.
So some of the eye problems that we have is, of course, hemorrhaging. So called diabetic retinopathy. So that's when you're going to have various types of hemorrhages. My first approach is to check what the BMI is. That's the first approach. The second approach is blood pressure. If I can't control the blood pressure, I'm lost. Think of a pipe in your house, and the pipe bursts. All the water goes into your house, and now you have a big problem. So we can laser that, weld it, and then we're doing good. But before doing that, I want to avoid that, so reduce the pressure. Then I get their glucose in set. What I do with the parents when they come to see us, I'm lucky because I have type 1. So when they sit there, the first thing I do is I tell the kids, look, we're the same. We speak the same language. Can't leave people alone. I know what it is. I know what it is to wake up and go to bed. At the end of all our talk, I make a deal with them. I tell them for the next year, you actually have to listen to your parents. So just 1 year, we work on that. And then we shake hands with green to green, and we make a pact. Easier to come from me than to come from the parents. And then a lot of the parents take pictures of the pack to remind the kids. I exclude cleaning their rooms, so that's not part of the pack. Just listen to your parents. And it comes from a different person. It comes from someone that has to deal with this. And that's the rapport we make. And that's what I love, absolutely love about Friends for Life and everything you all do, is it's a family. We all understand it. And I tell the kids, quite frankly, your parents don't have diabetes, but we leave. Might as well have that. They have to deal with this every single day. Kids come in, they're afraid, and they walk out, hey, this was cool. The staff hates me. I'm sorry.
I don't think anybody does. I think as the person with diabetes in each of our families, we can probably vouch for the fact that we sleep better than many of you do, at least more soundly through our alarms and our alerts. This sounds like a familiar tale in some ways, right? But again, one of the most remarkable things is that a lot of things can be treated and they can be adjusted, and you can be reminded that both your blood pressure, keeping good blood glucose control, which can be terribly, terribly daunting, particularly through some teenage years and through pubescent years, things like that. Like that 21-year-old who just decided, so many things can be corrected and can not be so permanent. But again, having that knowledge and understanding of that annual exam, not only for the kids with type 1 diabetes, but also mom and dad and caregivers. In addition to giving a pretty good snapshot of your diabetes health, your eyes can tell you a lot of things about who you are as a person. We have a colleague that Dr. Ben saw just the other day, and she came out, she said, he asked me if I had Native American blood in me, and I said, yes. and so there are so many things that can be really determined by what's going on behind your lens. So I'm going to shift over to Rebecca, literally shifting, and we're going to talk to you for a couple minutes. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Great. So I know we have some questions here, but I'm going to go a little bit off script or maybe even out of order. Tell us a little bit about your diabetes journey. What are some of the challenges that you faced? And sometimes, particularly as you're looking at complications, you're thinking about what's happening or what's going to happen. Those long-term effects may not impact your everyday decision, but all of those things really can take its toll on your emotional and mental health. Mm-hmm. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey, Rebecca?
Yeah, well, I've had type 1 for about 19 years now. And about a year after I was diagnosed with type 1, I was then diagnosed with celiac disease as well. So it was kind of a double whammy, kind of sucks, honestly. But, we make the most of it and we learn how to thrive with it. And so, really, I think over the years, I've struggled with a couple of things as far as mental health goes. I think everybody with type 1 at some point will probably experience some sort of burnout with diabetes. Just tired of the carb counting, tired of the finger pricks, tired of the data from your pump or your CGM. It can be a lot and it can be overwhelming. And I think that's kind of a normal thing to feel. And so diabetes burnout is something I've experienced, and then anything from, experiencing some depression or some anxiety over keeping my blood sugars in control, and even anger. I know during the teenage years, hormones are raging, and yeah, I experienced a lot of anger about diabetes. Why me was a common thought that went through my mind, and it does pose a challenge, but there are ways to address mental health with diabetes, and there are ways to make the most of living with diabetes and learn how to thrive with it to where, we aren't letting it hold us back from doing anything that we want to do with our lives. And yeah, diabetes might be there on the side. We might have to, adjust or shift how we take care of our diabetes, but we shouldn't let it ever hold us back from doing what we want to do in life. And so I think, as far as eye health goes, one particular challenge that I experienced when I was 14 was we went in for my annual eye exam, and the doctor came back with the results, and I had a burst capillary in the back of my eye. And I was terrified because I was only 14, this isn't supposed to happen. And my A1C at the time was 8.3. And like Dr. Ben was saying, I experienced a lot of roller coasters pretty regularly. And so I was definitely scared having that happen in my eye, and I didn't want anything to get worse. So my doctor at the time, super grateful for him. He really empowered me, and he sat me down and said, "Look, this is what we need to do. You need to start counting carbs more accurately and checking your blood sugar more often, and giving insulin before you eat, and pre-bolusing, waiting about 10 or 15 minutes before eating." And so he really empowered me. And of course, since I was scared, I also got mad about it, and I got mad at diabetes. And I was like, "Look, diabetes." And I had to sit down with my diabetes. So I was like, "Listen, you're not going to ruin my life. We're going to heal this, and this is going to be the way that it's going to be." So I got angry at my diabetes, and I took my doctor's advice, and I really hammered down my control with my diabetes. And then 3 months later, when I went back in for my checkup, my A1C had come down to 6.8, which I was so excited for. And they did a quick checkup on my eyes too. And the small capillary that had burst had completely healed up, and I was totally fine, completely healed again. And so I think that's such an important thing to note, is that a lot of times you can treat it. You can treat your eye complications or anything like that. So that's yeah.
Well, and it sounds like what you did was you took the basis of good health, right? And we say good is a very loose term, I think. But you really took control of your diabetes management and said, all right, I'm not going to face this. I'm tired of being scared. And you said, I'm going to drill down and do what I know I need to do, which is easier said than done. And I think that if you hadn't had that talk with your diabetes and you hadn't had that support around you and your family, do you think that you would have gone back to that doctor to hear more news? Or do you think maybe you would have shied away from it because sometimes hearing it is just half a battle?
I think, hearing it is definitely a battle. Probably for the first day or two after that appointment, I was mad at my doctor too. I was like, how dare you tell me bad news? But, I know. I mean, after that, it did, I had great support from my family, and it did let me know, okay, he's right. I need to do this. So it was kind of like working through that, and having that support from my family to really encourage me to go back was very crucial as well.
And remind us again, how far into your diagnosis were you when that happened?
Let's see. I would have been about 7 or 8 years since my diagnosis.
Okay, so Dr. Ben, can you tell us why is it that some people develop some of these complications at 7 years or so after diagnosis? Some people take decades for some event in their eye to happen. What are the factors that play into that, and why was Rebecca there at 14 when somebody else might not be there until they're 65?
That is such a golden question.
I did not write it myself.
I'll answer that with millionaires right now. So it really depends on the person, but shaming the person into doing something, right, is not the way to go. But one thing I want to point out, when we talk about having a hemorrhage doesn't always happen in diabetes. So let's say I saw a patient 2 days ago here, the diabetic stuff here, and he has diabetes for 27 years. And he had hemorrhages, but they didn't look anything like some glucose issues. Glucose issues are certain. Typically last 90 days and disappear if you're controlled. His work was more oblong. And I just looked at it and said, this is not diabetes. This is constipation. What? You go to the bathroom, you force, I'm sorry, but that increases the intraocular pressure 500 times. You have diabetes, your blood vessels are not so strong. Boom, you burst a vessel. Go away. But it's not just diabetes, it's lifestyle. So not just that. You wake up in the morning, how many people rub their eyes? You rub your eyes in the morning, I don't know why it's fashionable. You increase the pressure 500 times. People sneeze and they want to be polite, so we'll hold it in 500 times. You increase. So it's tons of things like that. But why do some early, some late? So often it has to do with how your blood vessels are. So I'm ancient. Dinosaurs roamed the land when I was born. So my vessels are a little bit more rigid than yours. They may have a little bit of cholesterol. If I have blood pressure that goes up, I don't, but if I did, it's been so long, it's like porcelain. Boom, it breaks. Boom, it breaks. I sneeze, hold it in, I'm polite. Boom, it breaks. Or my glucose could go up. This morning I was 365. So I go and I go around the lake looking for alligators. I can't find them anymore. Then it comes down. So it's all lifestyle. It's all what you do. And I tell most of our parents, look, diabetes, you own it. This is you. So you are different from me and from anybody else. Some will have poor control or difficult control. So if you're in your teens and you are getting closer to 20, 21, of course you know everything. You don't need me to tell you what to do. You know everything. It's the third time back from life, so you know everything. So it's how to get to the person. You're angry with diabetes. I was like totally ticked off. How dare I work with diabetes? How dare I have diabetes? This happens. And you do a wonderful work. You know, it's amazing. And you just have to work at it. And then once you work so hard, it becomes lifestyle. You go sit down with your medical students here, and okay, what am I going to be? And I just incorporate it in life. For me, diabetes is losing spontaneity. You're going to go do something and I think about it. I always tell my students, you have to work hard because you have to find a cure to diabetes. So study.
Well, thank you for that. There's a Stanford University study that came out in 2014 saying that people with diabetes make an extra 180 decisions every day, which is crazy, right? I make a 1,000 decisions in a split second, and so many of them are just so autonomic, right? When you think about where am I going next? What am I eating now? Is this pizza? How long do I have to bolus for it? That sort of thing, right? We're very fortunate to have so many advances in medical care, in science, and in technology, not only in eye health and in eye exams, which we talked a little bit about, specific to the AI, the incredible machinery that we have doing the tests here, but also in diabetes care. And with the advent of CGM technology and new pumps that work with CGMs, and I'm going to call on Rebecca first and then Dr. Ben so you can think about this. But in your time with diabetes, what have you seen change? What have been some of the advances that you've seen?
Yeah. When I was first diagnosed in 2003, I was doing multiple daily injections. So I had 2 shots a day of long-acting insulin and then multiple shots of fast-acting insulin, depending on what I was eating. And so along with the injections, I was breaking my fingers multiple times a day as well. And then fast forward to about 2010, shortly after I had heard the news about my eye, and we were able to, my parents and I were able to get me on an insulin pump. So super loved that. It worked very well for my lifestyle and my eating habits as well. And so the insulin pump was a game changer for me. And then additionally, fast forward, 6 more years, and I got started regularly using a CGM, and that has been incredible for me. I'm a big numbers person, so I like to dig into the data and see the trends that are happening with my blood sugars, and it's really helped me manage my diabetes a little bit easier. I would say it's never easy, I would say, but it does help a lot. So the advancements in technology has been really amazing to see.
Technology, I think we'd all agree is great. There have been advancements beyond technology, of course. Dr. Ben, what have you seen in your time?
Technology. Technology. I can tell you that since we're screening here, and I see the same kids, and I feel ancient because some of the kids I saw, now I have to get on a chair to give them a hug, because that's a prize for the screenings. Everybody has to give a hug. And what I see is that there's less and less and less a need for me because there's no hemorrhages. Like today, we saw a bunch of patients, and everybody has a pump. A lot of people are moving, and I don't see any hemorrhages. And the students tell me, Dr. Ben, you said we'd see hemorrhages. Sorry, these guys have all the technology, and it's absolutely amazing. I totally agree with you. Technology is advancing.
And we know that even without using some of the technology and some of the new things that are on the market, which not everyone unfortunately has access to, and that's why Rebecca and the folks at the American Diabetes Association and other such organizations are working so hard on access, affordability, and equitable care, which is critically important to diabetes management. We know that there are even things like the types of insulin that we used back in 1986. Again, we had to eat food that coordinated with our insulin, as opposed to taking insulin that coordinates with your food. Right? Those were very different days. And so, once again, it's really, we feel a responsibility both at the American Diabetes Association, certainly through our professional friends and through the students that you're bringing up, to really put our names down at the bottom of anything and say, we're here to stand up for people with diabetes, to help you thrive, and to help you learn a little bit more about complications like diabetic eye disease, like retinopathy, like glaucoma, and like cataracts. And I did mention this earlier, but I actually have retinopathy myself, and it was diagnosed in 2014. Now, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I am grateful that they have eye injections. There are many things that have been created in order to treat eyes. You mentioned laser that can seal up some of those holes. The eye injections, it's more of a piece of cake than you would ever think. So if you ever feel like, oh, I'm not doing that, I don't recommend doing it for kicks, but it's not that bad. And I'm happy to walk you through it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So just in case, because of that one individual I spoke about that had all these hemorrhages, I bring with me this drug called Avastin. In the event I see this happen, so we could step out of Disney because Disney nothing bad happens, and we can start treating because often we need to treat. So Avastin is the injection you're talking about. Typically, we need 3 or plus, but you can start and resolve. So I tell all my kids, look, we just need to find the problem and we can fix the problem. We don't like to wait for the problem. So that's the key. At the point that I want to quickly mention. Diabetes, how do we look at the differences? Unfortunately, guys have a problem. The guys are not as good as the girls that come to our screenings. They're more scared, don't know what to do, and they just don't perform as well because they become super stubborn. For some reason, women are more balanced, more mature. What I do in our screenings to make sure that we can screen everybody, because today we had 6-year-olds that we screen, is I make sure that there's a good match. I'll have girls, guys in there. When the guys see that there's a girl, they become natural. They just yes, and then we can get them out. But when we didn't have that, we would lose 50% of our cases to screening. So having the girls, that makes a big difference. Girls are much more mature in diabetes than guys are in the teens. Sorry, but that's how it is.
I'm from this side of the stage.
I'm a guy and I'm not so much.
So Rebecca, we talked a little bit about advocacy, right? I was mentioning that the American Diabetes Association does some really great work in terms of advocating for people with diabetes along with partner organizations. What are some things that you do personally to advocate for yourself on a daily basis, but then also to advocate for and work within the diabetes community?
Yeah. Well, I volunteered with the American Diabetes Association for a long time, ever since I was a little kid. I was involved with their camps program, both as a camper for several years and as a counselor once I was old enough. And that was really amazing, getting to work with kids with diabetes and just see how strong and tough and resilient these kids are. It's so inspiring, and it's an amazing experience. But on a daily basis, I would say, showing off my devices in public can bring on a lot of questions from strangers, or bring on a lot of, looks and or curious stares and things like that. And in that sense, I just try to be friendly towards them, and I smile and I'm like, hey, I kind of try to initiate that conversation with them. Because that's a moment of advocacy. It's a moment to educate the general public about what diabetes is and what causes it or what doesn't cause it, or any myths or anything like that. So being open to questions is just something I have found that works really well for me. But I know not everybody is comfortable with doing that, and I even have days where I'm just like, you know what, I don't want people to ask me about it today, and so I'll cover my devices and just go on about my day. Some other advocacy things I'm involved in is the ADA advocacy team, and I've also done fundraising for Tour de Cure and their Step Out fundraisers, and just about everything. I try to be as involved with the diabetes community as I can, because this is such a strong and resilient community, and it's very inspiring as a person living with diabetes to see other people thriving with their diabetes.
So as we discovered earlier, we are in a room, we've had some comers and goers, but we are in a room of caregivers. And all of you have chosen to be here because of or with someone that you love who is living with diabetes or facing the daily challenges. So from those of us up here with green bracelets, thank you for choosing to advocate for your child, your loved one, your grandchild, your niece or nephew, whoever it is that you're here with, your brother, your spouse. It is our job to make sure that we listen to you and that we thank you appropriately and that we learn what we can do to help ourselves, right? And so once again, coming to see Dr. Ben every year, we're in a bit of an echo chamber around what do you do for advocacy, because we've all chosen to be here, right? Coming here every year to get that eye exam is one of the things that we can do, and that we can help alleviate some of the weight on your shoulders as caregivers as to what's this going to look like in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, in 40 years for my kid. Dr. Ben, so speaking of kids, let's shift gears a quick second here. Why did you get into eye health? What is it that inspired you to choose eyeballs?
Cancer.
Okay.
Cancer. So I worked with cancer in 1975, and I was working in lung cancer, and from lung cancer to a PhD in lung cancer, and then I went to breast cancer to brain cancer. So I worked myself up towards the eye, and then I had a physician that came to see me. I couldn't speak English. came to see me and said, hey, we'd like to offer you a job. Blah, blah. It was like blah, 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 blah. And I heard the word California. I'm from Montreal. It's cold. He says California. Hey, whatever you're saying, I'm going. So I went to get my boss. My boss came over and I asked him to translate. He translated it. So, okay, go away. Yes, I'm going to go. You just need to learn English. It's a small thing to do. But worse. And it was pediatrics, and we were working in eye cancer. And from eye cancer in kids called retinoblastoma, we did prematurity. So babies born preterm, and chicken baby syndrome, which is really fun. And then diabetes. So since 1980 till now, that's all I've been doing. I have to say I'm the laziest person on earth. Sorry. I have not worked a single day in my life. Not one. Love it. I'm ashamed I get paid for it. It's amazing. So I thank you all. I really thank everyone to come here. They supported us to come here so that we can help the kids. That is so heartwarming because of the pandemic, companies are not selling equipment anymore. I used to go and beg companies to lend us equipment so we can come here and do everything we do, the fanciest piece of equipment, not even on the market. And the companies would tell me, we're not interested. We're not interested. You kidding me? So I have all those pictures with the kids with diabetes. And I showed them, look at this kid, look at this kid. What do you mean you're not interested? This could be your kid. Well, you know, we're not interested. 3 weeks ago, we had no equipment. We had funding to come, but we had no equipment. So I ran to the state of New Jersey. We're not allowed to take equipment out of the hospital, of course. Not allowed to take it out of the state of New Jersey. But boy, I begged for help. And I learned with diabetes how to be persistent. And once I was so persistent, they told, okay, you can take it. We can take it because they didn't want to see me anymore. So then I needed to find a van. So one of the parents of our students lent us their van. We loaded up the equipment. We went to DC, put it on a train. We got here. This is what we do. We love working with the kids. Absolutely love it.
It is a labor. It's also a labor of love, though. I think
It is.
that. Yeah. So
I'm lucky. I've done 22 countries in the world doing work with diabetes. From North Korea, Saudi Arabia, all over the place. We love it. So thank you for all what you guys are doing. And I thank you all. Supporting our kids is number one.
well, and we are friends for life, right?
We are.
So you are thanking me, but we really owe you the biggest gratitude.
It's all family.
It is all family. We want to open up, we've got about 15 minutes left, and we can open up for some questions, either for Dr. Ben, for Rebecca. I'm happy to chat as well.
Just to clarify, you said that this exam does not replace a typical annual eye exam. They're two separate things. Correct.
That's right.
Any separate course of action for like teeny tiny little type 1 diabetics, or is it all the same?
So I'm going to go off script for a second. As a physician, I will type it off script. So the recommendation is, we have to do the check after 5 years. It used to be 10, now it's 5. Physician, I am in a situation where if you come 5 years later, and I will be in big trouble, and I apologize, but I want to know how your eye was when you were diagnosed. You don't have type 2. Type 2, you could have been type 2 for a long time. Type 1, you know what it is. I asked the kids, so how long? June 21st, 19. So they virtually give me the time of day. So it's very important for me to be able to document how the healthy eye is. Still, we do the 5 years. So we do more in-depth testing because we now know we published a paper. It's the journal, it's a medical journal called Retina, where we stormed in. People say, well, it's type 1, there's nothing different from type 2, it's a different world. And we have a landmark paper with all the children here that we've seen over the years. They come back. And we show how important the deep in-depth testing with full CT optical tomography is. I do pre-testing because I do preventative medicine. I do non-radiographic because I don't want to have medical situation here. So our equipment is very expensive because it goes in the dark. It doesn't replace, of course, full exam. But we picked up stuff here that before you can see it on the retina, we see it in the OCT.
So to clarify just a bit of what Dr. Ben was saying about why you would get in trouble if you didn't.
Oh, good.
Um,
Friends.
The standard of care, the standards of care for diabetes management are written by the professional team at the American Diabetes Association, by hundreds and hundreds of volunteers who have dedicated their careers to endocrinology, the management of type 1, type 2, gestational, later, prediabetes, all the things that are related, right?
Yep.
And each year, it might be twice now, those standards are updated based on what has emerged and what these peer reviews have resulted in. Currently, the standard of care is that you get an eye exam 5 years after diagnosis. I think that might just be for type 1. I could be in type 2 also. But we all know that as grown-ups, we should all be getting an annual eye exam. The question that you asked was particularly about teeny tiny people, teeny tinies with diabetes, right? And so following the recommended course of action by their pediatrician for their eye health right away, whether that's annuals or a couple of times every few years, would likely be the recommendation, and then it's certainly at that 5-year point after diagnosis. So even if you're diagnosed at age 0, you're going to look at an age 5, beginning those annual eye exams.
So it's important. What if your child, what if your child had diabetes? You wait 5 years, and there's another disease that's hanging out, and that's unrelated to diabetes. I want to know. I don't want to be the person caught with, why didn't you see this? So, but I work with babies, so I look, and I'm A-type personality, so I'm going to spend. But these are the norms. It's 5 years. We follow those norms. Careful. Keep active. That's the key. I will see super young kids, and just to be on the safe side, I would have to say less than 2% of all the kids I've done before the 5-year had an issue. So then the physicians will tell me, well, you're spending a lot of time and energy. I have time. I have the energy. Okay. Right.
People do testing with all the different types of fast acting insulin. They put them out in insurance companies say, oh, you did that or not? Or you did that or not? Have you seen any differences in tests with different types of fast acting insulin?
I personally haven't seen any differences in the tests.
No. But I have to be quite frank. I'm a cheater. I'm Canadian, so I get to live in Canada. So I don't have quite that issue. But it's difficult. Depending where we go, we have access to certain things and not other things. But no, I have not seen.
As long as you're in control, then that should be best.
Diabetes is in control. Just direct.
Any other questions? All right, well, last word, team. Rebecca, what do you have to share with this amazing group of caregivers?
Yeah, well, thank you all for coming, and we're really excited that we got to talk to you today. I think one of my favorite sayings about diabetes is that it's an art, and it's different for each person, and that's okay. And I really just encourage you all to encourage your littles to live a full life, because it's totally possible with diabetes. Don't let it hold them back from doing what they're dreaming of doing. If you all have any other questions, or if you want to talk more about eye health, we have some great resources at the ABA booth in the exhibit hall when that opens later today. Thank you all so much for coming.
Well, I want thank you for everything. I want to thank you for all your efforts. I want to thank all the caregivers because we couldn't do it without what you all are doing and giving up. And I thank the kids. What I do is I tell all the kids that have diabetes, the younger the better, that their job is to become the president of the United States. That's what I want. Type 1 female in the United States. And we end all wars and we end all problems and we take care of finance. That's what I tell my kids. There is no limit. It's not because you have diabetes, you have a limit. There's no limit. Go for it.
Canadians are so polite.
Okay?
Right. And once again, I want to thank you all so very much for being here. On a personal note, I'm here to say that 36 years later, I have seen the things, I've done all the stuff. I completely disregarded my diabetes for a long time. I should not have, sorry, Mom. But I lived to tell the tale, and I've lived a very full, amazing life in diabetes, which is pretty cool. Particularly because you get to come here and you get to see so many other people doing it. And Rebecca said that it's inspiring to see, and that word gets thrown around a lot. But I can tell you that as a person with diabetes, I get burned out all the time. Coming here and seeing people just like me is the coolest thing. That your community and this one that you've chosen to come to, that you've chosen to be a part of, that you've chosen to bring us into, is the best thing that for you, for your loved one, for your family. So please continue to come back here. Please continue to find that community. Please continue to take care of yourselves in addition to your loved one with diabetes. And please stop and say hi to any of us. We are here all week. It was great having you. Thank you.